Hello, Jimmy here in the back office, so excuse the slightly echoey sound quality. There's not much I can do about that right now until I get some soundproofing set up in here. This video is basically going to be an introduction to early medieval men's clothing. As most of you probably already guessed from the name, I tend to reenact either Welsh or Vikings of the early medieval period. And when I say early medieval, I mean kind of pre-1200s, so like pre-13th century. Some people have different ways of defining what's early medieval and what's high medieval. For me, high medieval tends to be sort of, in British terms, when the Normans are very much becoming Anglo-Norman and they're building big stone castles everywhere and people have split tunics and big strange sleeves. I'm more interested in pre-1066 Norman conquest of England, and especially in non-English portrayals, because I don't think they get enough time at reenactments and enough airtime on the internet. Anyway, enough about my reenactment preferences. I wanted to do this video because there isn't very much on YouTube that's just telling people how to put together a good basic impression. And for the early medieval period, it is so easy to put together a good basic impression that you can use for a good few hundred years. If you can put something basic in a tunic and hose together, that can last you right the way from basically sub-Roman 6th, 5th century, right the way through to the 12th, and maybe even the 13th century if you're depicting somebody from quite a poor background. So what I want to do, I thought it might be fun, is if I try to make myself look like a few different manuscripts from a few different cultures. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an Anglo-Saxon manuscript, I'm going to do a Carolingian manuscript, so French manuscript, and I'm going to do a Norman impression. I shouldn't say manuscript because it's actually going to be using an embroidery. Anyway, I'm also going to be using an Irish and a Scottish picture that will inspire my looks. So let's jump in. We're going to start with the Anglo-Saxon calendar, and here we go. Let's see what we can put together with some generic old world kit. The first thing we're going to look at is this 11th century Anglo-Saxon manuscript. This depicts people harvesting from a calendar, and as you can see, they're just wearing their hose, their tunics, and their shoes. These are the three basic items that we're going to look at. Here we go with the autumn collection, and as you can see, Jimmy here is just wearing his wool tunic, rucked over his belt to give him that classic rolled over waistline that was so popular in pretty much every country in Western Europe during this period. He's got his nice tight hose and his generic shoes. The hose are gartered just above the knees, an affectation that he chooses personally to help keep them tight. The Irish manuscript you see here from 2 centuries later shows that looks have changed very little. In fact, it's barely changed at all. He's wearing exactly the same thing he was wearing in the last collection, and this time he's ready to go out in Dublin. In summer, where else does one look for fashion but France? And this Carolingian manuscript of the 10th century shows us exactly how we need to look when we're out in the fields. Specifically, we'll look at Mr. May with the red cloak and Mr. July with the blue cloak on the row beneath him. Again, just braise, hose, tunic, shoes, and cloak for this one. Let's see what Jimmy can put together. Well, that's just fantastic. As you can see, with the simple addition of the cloak, he's completely changed this ensemble from a lovely casual affair to a beautiful semi-formal look. Now, your cloak doesn't have to be pinned at the right, it can be pinned in the centre, like so. It doesn't have to use a penannular brooch, it can use a disc brooch, a zoomorphic brooch, or anything else you like. It doesn't have to be decorated with embroidery either, it can be a nice simple wool affair, and you'll basically be welcome anywhere in Western Europe, right the way through to Eastern Europe and even Russia, wearing this kind of clothing, particularly if you are fairly low status. Now, if you want to carry some seeds and do some sowing in the fields whilst you're out, all you need to do is pouch up your cloak, and as you can see, when he moves this little fold out of the way, you've got a lovely seed pouch. This is something we see an awful lot in the manuscripts. It's a very, very practical look, and as you can see, it's absolutely outstanding, a real stunner for this season. I think you'll all agree. In terms of July, it's a little warmer, so it's time to take off the hose and shoes, and Jimmy's really ready for work this time. There he is, with his big
wide cuffs on his brays. Now this really closely matches that manuscript, so he's really following the fashion plate of the time here, with those big open cuffs to keep him nice and aired in those hot fields. It's time for a little bit of a party, and as we look at this Irish warrior, we see that he's basically wearing shorts and a t-shirt look. This is probably a longer tunic tucked into the trousers, but it could be a short jacket. Now I think we'll all agree that this is the look that we're least happy with. It's probably the least authentic of all of them, simply using the brays we used before, but they've been bloused and tied just below the knee, and Jimmy's tied these brays with two little pieces of leather thonging, as he will demonstrate just here. Now, as we said, this is the look that we're least happy with of all of the ones we've provided you in this collection, but from a distance it seems to serve its purpose, and if you were to do this on a battlefield or a reenactment event not too close to the crowd line, it may serve for your first couple of events before you put specific kit together. In terms of Scotland, they're wearing very similar clothing to the Irish and the Welsh in this period. There's an unbelted tunic there with a sword, but for now we're going to move on to the Normans. As you can see, this look is inspired by the Bayeux tapestry. Now these men have just tucked their tunics up into their belts, and that provides them with a lovely girded loins look for carrying any kind of animal you like. Now I'm sure you don't even need to provide you with a practical demonstration for this, so that's all for this video. I hope it's been useful to those of you putting together your first generic medieval kit. I do hope that you have enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Thank you once again for joining me. Bye for now.